All right, we are back and just continuing to check in. How's the stuff going for you?
It's gone. I'm starting to kind of wind down on this. I'm still working on my NaNoWriMo project, but my
Mhm.
thoughts are starting to turn back to the project that I was working on before NaNoWriMo, and then I'm going to go back to um, in January. So I'm trying to kind of still work on this, but I know that that is coming, and my thoughts are starting to turn more towards things that need to be done with that. So that's a little frustrating. Like my
Hmm.
mind is kind of divided.
What have you found that helps with that?
Um, I think just kind of like thinking that like everything has its time and everything has its place, and the time
Hmm.
for that is not yet, you know. Because I
Yeah.
mean, if I just wanted to turn to that, then I would, but I want to get this to as good a place as I can before I leave it, so that when
Hmm.
I come back to it, it is like all the hard things are done and it's mostly going to be a smooth sailing fun ride for the rest of the time,
Hmm.
and I'm trying to get it there before I leave it, which like leaving things is a normal thing that I do. I kind of write things and then I don't try to like get them all the way done right away. I try to get some distance from it and then come back to it. So it's common to kind of like do a draft of something and then leave it and write something else and then come back to it after that and um, have some distance from it when I come back and start kind of editing it and going through the revision cycle with it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I've had good results with that in the past. Like you're able to kind of read your own stuff as if somebody else wrote it a little bit.
And that but you kind of want to have like a completed draft. You want it to be like kind of a finished thought. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I do have a draft. It's not the draft. It's not like the full vision of what I want to write, but I have a full arc.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would like to have all of kind of the heavy lifting, the hard stuff done. And then when I come back to it, maybe some of that I don't like and I need to redo it. That's fine. But it's not that I like need to like write it the first time.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're going to be able to have some objectivity when you step away from it and come back. You'll have fresh eyes on it. So you'll have an idea those revisions that need to happen at that.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
And also that a lot of that revision will be kind of fixing things that already exist and not writing things that haven't been written.
Hmm. That's interesting. Yeah, I can see
At
that
least
being.
at least as much as possible. Like I always have scenes that never got written that kind of in the final, like in that last revision, I'm like writing material that was never written before.
Hmm.
Like that'll happen, but you're kind of like feeling like now that I'm at the end, I see things that I didn't do that I should have done.
Hmm.
So I don't know. It's different than just trying to, it's different than the middle. It's different than the messy middle.
Yeah. What
Even
would
though it's
what
kind of like,
what do you think about that time as? What do you refer to it as or whatever?
which time do you mean?
This the I think about it as like the end game. Like that. Oh, that there's an infinite number of chess games, Like there's more chess games, like 40 move chess games than there are atoms in the known universe or something like that. But a lot of those chess games are just complete nonsense. Like the moves don't make any sense. And I feel like narratives are about the same. Like I think there's like an infinite number of narratives that we could tell, but there's like a vanishingly small number of narratives that have like satisfactory resolutions. So I feel like the end game is really, really significant, you know, and
Yeah,
it's
so
really
you mean by the end game, not the like finishing of the narrative, but the finishing of the project is the end game.
yeah, yeah, because like the narrative, I don't know, ideally, I think the best, some of the most satisfying stories, like even though the book is over, like the story goes on, um, like we're not completely certain, not all the loose ends have been tied up, where there's enough like trajectory to the characters' lives, enough momentum that we can imagine them going on to do other things. At least I find those types of stories very satisfying. So yeah, I mean by the end game, I mean all those things that support the closure of the book, you know. Um, and it begins ideally in like the first sentence. There's going to be some hint of what that final end game is, but it's, to be determined. Um, but it's really difficult, like in a first draft, to really have nailed down that end game because there's so much discovery that's going on in the writing process. Um, which is why so many like beginning books and my first few books had really strong beginnings and then they just kind of peter out. Um, because that end game is so much more complicated than the beginning. Um, yeah.
Yeah, well, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. I
No,
didn't mean to cut
that's
you off.
that's really all. It's really interesting to look. Like if you look at like even just going back to chess, like there's a lot of books on chess openers, but there's not a lot of books on chess closers. You know what I mean? Like it's the closing down is really hard. Um,
Yeah, well, in some sense, that's because you have a lot more control over the game when you're beginning it than you do when you're ending it. Because
mhm.
a lot has gone on at the ending, you know. First of all, there's an opponent that you're playing against. Like
Yeah,
they get to make decisions too. Um, so I understand what you mean by complexity. Like there is a lot more happening at the end than what you were thinking about at the beginning.
yeah. I mean,
Um,
one of the things that I do just to kind of get that part of my brain working even in that direction is like if I'm moving towards in game stuff, I start doing like just chess puzzles on the chess app. Um, just because I feel like it could be just completely a placebo effect, but I feel like it's at least flexing those muscles that are making me think like 4 or 5 moves ahead, you know? Um, so I'm having to like stack up a series of possibilities, a lot, anytime you're doing like, because with the chess puzzles, it just keeps throwing puzzles at you. I haven't really found another analog for, I mean, apart from maybe doing calculus word problems or something awful like that same kind of muscle, that same kind of lifting. Um, Maybe certain video games you have to like hold a whole bunch of threads together, to make sense of the puzzle in the video game. That there might be something to that. Um, yeah. I'll start to vary the way that I actually do my morning routine. Like if I routinely brush my teeth with my right hand, I'll start to brush my teeth with my left hand, or I'll intentionally drive different directions to work. Have you ever tried that?
I've not like switched which hand I brush my teeth with, but I have driven a different route to work. Yeah.
Yeah, those sorts of things, like if you normally eat spaghetti with your right hand, eat it with your left hand, or particularly morning activities, like if you typically drive this way to work, intentionally drive a different way to work, like those types of things, they just I remember watching some special about memory and about brains, and it talked about those types of things being really activating the memory system in the brain and encouraging kind of complex problem solving, you know, behaviors in the brain. So like intentionally varying things. Um, just to have, I mean, it's not like all of a sudden there's gonna be some eureka moment when you do that, but I do think it's like opening up that possibility. Um, I don't know.
No, I think by the time you're to that point, most of the eureka moments have happened.
hmm
Um,
One thing I don't do when I'm finishing up a project is I don't start reading a new book unless it's just like some hot trash that, you know, nonfiction. Nonfiction, I don't think has a real stylistic impact on the work that I'm doing typically, but like there's been moments in the past where like I'd be almost done with a project and I would read like Paul Auster. I remember Paul Auster did this to me once. Like I read this New York trilogy, I think, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is it. This is the style that I've been looking for all this time. And I'm like almost done. And I'm like, I gotta rewrite the whole thing like Paul Auster, you know, it's it's like convinced myself it's a terrible idea. But yeah, I watch my input, you know what I mean? Like I intentionally try to start to bore myself more. Like I kind of wean myself off of reading other books or any, you know, entertainment type behaviors. I don't know.
yeah, I don't think I do it with all entertainment, but with specifically with like reading a new novel, I stop reading when I'm kind of headed into the like third act. Like I don't really read other people's words at all while I'm writing the third act.
Yeah.
But I think that has more to do with concentration and with like brain space and just really being focused and dedicated with what I'm doing more than it has to do with like not wanting someone else to mess me up, you know?
Yeah, I think there's a 1-2 piece to that. One thing that I've also found, and I try to take this advice and take it pretty seriously. Like I don't, especially if I'm moving towards finishing something and I feel real strong about it, I'll stop. Like I won't share it with anyone. Like I won't let anyone else look at it. Um, and it's just because like there's like a potential energy that's being developed there. Like it's an incentive for me, like to finally have it finished to where I could share it with someone else. That's incentive enough to make me want to like focus a lot on getting it done. Um, but if I were to like start sharing it with everybody, I really think that I might just like not even finish it, you know? Um, it's possible someone would say something and even unintentionally kind of discourage me from completing it. Or they might love it and they love it so much. I'm just like, well, so much, you know, it's so great. It's perfect, you know? So, either way, I don't view it as like beneficial. I think it's better to kind of keep the cards close to the chest and just kind of hold on to that potential energy there. Um,
Yeah, I think I mostly do that too. I do, I will especially as I'm kind of approaching the end, I'll start to read a little bit to my wife. Like not like big sections, but like a paragraph here or there, you know, just I'll pick kind of little excerpts and read them
mhm.
to her. But that's mostly because her excitement will feed my excitement and it kind of gives me a boost to like get to the end, you know? Like
That's
she's
cool.
getting excited about it, she will read it, and that kind of feeds my engine to like get the finish line. But for most of the time, yeah, in the same way. I'll kind of like tell her a little bit about what I'm writing. I won't let her read it until it's done.
Well, hey, we're getting a low bandwidth warning, plus it's like the timer's chimed. So I'm gonna on that note, we'll say good evening. We'll be back next week for more. And man, keep writing, keep at it. Good night.
Yeah, you do. Take care. Night.